Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've been following the Ukraine-Russia conflict closely, you know that the situation on the ground is constantly evolving. Today we're breaking down the latest developments that could significantly impact the trajectory of this war. Stick around because what we're about to reveal might shock you. Opening hook. Let's start with what just happened. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, Russian forces have achieved another significant breakthrough across multiple sectors of the battlefield. In just the past 24 hours alone, Russian troops claim to have seized control of 4 additional settlements. Now, this might not sound like much, but when you understand the strategic importance of these locations and what they represent for the broader conflict, you'll see why military analysts are paying close attention. Section 1, Territorial Advances in Kharkiv. First, let's talk about the Kharkiv region. Russian forces from the North Group claim they've successfully captured 2 settlements, Budarki and Karaichnoye. According to Moscow's statement, Ukrainian defenses in these areas had already suffered serious losses in previous clashes. This is important because it tells us that the Ukrainian defensive positions were already weakened before this latest offensive push. But here's where it gets interesting. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that in response to mounting casualties and severe manpower shortages, the Ukrainian armed forces were forced to deploy specially trained instructor detachments. These weren't just regular troops. These were experienced personnel taken directly from military training centers. The idea was to reinforce collapsing defensive lines and stabilize the situation. So Ukraine was essentially pulling their best trainers off the bench to shore up their defenses. Yet despite having these experienced instructors leading the defense, Ukrainian forces allegedly failed to stop the Russian advance. Under sustained pressure from Russian assault groups, concentrated artillery fire, and coordinated drone reconnaissance operations, Ukrainian troops were ultimately compelled to abandon their positions and retreat from both villages. What does this tell us? It suggests that the Ukrainian military is facing serious challenges. When you're forced to pull your most experienced instructors away from training duties just to hold the line, it indicates that frontline manpower is critically low. This is a sign of serious strain on the Ukrainian military's overall capacity. And up to Section 2, Dnipropetrovsk region breakthroughs. But the territorial gains don't stop in Kharkiv. Russian forces are also claiming significant advances in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The center group claims they've captured the settlement of Novopidgorodne following a series of coordinated attacks. Meanwhile, the East Group claims control over the settlement of Lesnoe after several days of heavy combat operations. Now, Lesnoe is particularly significant. According to Russian military reports, the battle for this settlement involved dismantling what they describe as a large network of fortified Ukrainian strongholds. We're talking about an area exceeding 10 square kilometers. This wasn't just a small village with a few defensive positions. This was a major defensive complex. These fortifications reportedly included trenches, reinforced firing points, underground shelters, observation posts, and even drone operation sites. This tells us that Ukraine had invested significant resources into making this area defensible. They weren't just throwing up quick defenses. This was a prepared layered defensive network designed to slow down any Russian breakthrough attempts. So what's the significance of losing this? Russian military analysts argued that the destruction of these defensive networks could have wider operational consequences. It may reduce the effectiveness of Ukrainian defensive coordination in nearby sectors. More importantly, the capture of these fortified zones potentially opens new routes for future Russian offensives deeper into Ukrainian-controlled territory. This is about more than just holding ground. This is about creating pathways for future advances. Section 3, Air Defense and Drone Warfare. Now let's talk about what might be the most striking claim in this statement, air defense. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, Russian air defense systems have been incredibly effective. Over the past week alone, Russian air defense units claim to have intercepted and destroyed 2,628 Ukrainian drones. Let that number sink in for a moment. Over 2,600 drones in 7 days. The ministry states that these drones were targeting military infrastructure, supply routes, logistics hubs, and positions held by Russian forces both near the front lines and in rear operational zones. This tells us something important. Ukraine is conducting extensive drone operations across the entire depth of the Russian-held territory, not just at the front lines. But there's more. Russian forces also claim to have intercepted 3 long-range Storm Shadow and SCALP cruise missiles. These are Western-supplied systems, and they're considered among the most advanced precision strike weapons currently used by Ukraine. These missiles are capable of hitting targets at considerable distances with high accuracy. The fact that Russia claims to have intercepted these suggests that their air defense network is capable of countering sophisticated Western weapon systems. Additionally, Russian air defense units claim to have destroyed 23 HIMARS multiple launch rocket system projectiles during the same reporting period. HIMARS systems supplied by the United States have been extensively used by Ukrainian forces throughout the conflict to strike command centers, ammunition depots, and troop concentrations far behind the front line. Finally, Russian military authorities claim that 44 guided aerial bombs launched by Ukrainian aircraft were intercepted and neutralized before before reaching their intended targets. Officials emphasize that air defense crews have been operating continuously under difficult battlefield conditions. Now, here's the critical question. How much of this should we believe? These are claims made by the Russian Ministry of Defense. They have an incentive to present their forces in the best possible light. However, the numbers are so specific and detailed that they suggest some level of actual tracking and reporting, even if the exact figures might be subject to some debate. Into Section 4, what this means for the conflict. So, what do all these developments tell us about the broader conflict? First, we're seeing increasing attrition on both sides. The fact that Ukraine is deploying experienced instructors to the front lines suggests serious manpower challenges. The fact that Russia is claiming to intercept thousands of drones suggests that both sides are relying heavily on unmanned systems. Second, we're seeing the intensification of what military analysts call attritional warfare. This is a grinding, slow-paced conflict where both sides are trying to wear down the other through continuous pressure, constant casualties, and exhaustion of resources. It's not a conflict characterized by rapid breakthroughs and dramatic maneuvers. It's a conflict where every meter of ground is contested, every position is heavily fortified, and every advance comes at significant cost. Third, these developments come as military activity intensifies ahead of what many analysts believe will be a crucial summer campaign. Both sides appear to be positioning themselves for what could be one of the most decisive phases of the conflict so far. Section 5, Strategic Analysis. Let's talk about strategy. Russia's approach appears to be focused on maintaining pressure simultaneously across several operational directions. The strategy seems to be exhaust Ukrainian manpower and resources through continuous offensives, attritional warfare, and constant pressure on logistical infrastructure. It's a war of attrition designed to grind down Ukrainian capacity over time. Ukraine's strategy, by contrast, relies on stabilizing defensive lines while leveraging Western military support, advanced strike systems, and extensive drone warfare capabilities. Ukraine is trying to hold territory while bleeding Russian forces through defensive operations and long-range strikes. The battlefield remains highly dynamic. Both sides are suffering losses. Both sides are seeking opportunities to gain strategic momentum before larger summer operations fully unfold. But the overall trend appears to be one of slow, grinding Russian advances against Ukrainian defenses that are under increasing strain. Section 6, what's at stake? Why should you care about all this? Because the outcomes of these battles will determine the trajectory of this entire conflict. If Russian forces can continue to make territorial gains while degrading Ukrainian defensive capabilities, it could shift the balance of the war. If Ukraine can stabilize its defenses and inflict unsustainable casualties on Russian forces, it could prevent Russian victory and potentially create conditions for a negotiated settlement. The summer campaign will be crucial. Military analysts are watching closely to see if either side can achieve a breakthrough that fundamentally changes the situation on the ground. The next few months could be absolutely decisive. On closing. So there you have it. The latest developments from the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Russian forces are claiming significant territorial gains across multiple sectors. Ukraine's defenses are under strain, evidenced by the need to deploy experienced instructors to the front lines. Both sides are relying heavily on advanced technology, from drones to long-range missiles to sophisticated air defense systems. The conflict is intensifying as we head into the summer campaign season. What happens in the coming weeks and months could fundamentally determine the outcome of this war. If you found this analysis helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next update on this developing situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.